Okay, let's be real for a sec. Shipwrecks, right. Total nightmare fuel. I mean, just thinking about being stranded at sea gives me the chills.
Yeah, I get it.
But, we're not here to freak anyone out.
Right.
We're all about knowledge here. Because when it comes to survival, knowledge, that's your ultimate life preserver. Like, seriously.
Couldn't agree more. Knowing what to do during a shipwreck, I mean, it can be the difference between making it back home and...
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's just dive right in. Picture this. You're out on a boat, maybe enjoying some sun, having a good time, and then bam, disaster strikes. What's the very first thing you should do?
Well, it might seem obvious, but the most important thing is to fight that panic, that initial, wave of panic.
Oh, for sure. Easier said than done, though, right? I think I'd be totally freaking out. Any, tricks for staying calm when everything's going haywire?
Well, no magic formula, really.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that can help, just focus on taking a deep breath, reminding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Got to think clearly to survive this. This situation's serious, yeah.
Yeah.
But panicking, that'll only make things worse.
Deep breaths. Got it. Okay, so I'm, relatively calm now. What next?
Next, grab that life jacket, put it on immediately. No hesitation.
Uh-huh. No time to worry about how it looks with my swimsuit, huh?
Nope, not even a little.
Yeah.
Seriously, think of it this way. A life jacket. It's not just some piece of safety equipment.
Right.
It's your lifeline. It's what buys you time. It keeps you afloat.
Yeah.
It makes you way more visible to potential rescuers.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's the single most important thing you can do in those first few, critical moments.
Okay, life jacket's on. Check. What now?
Now.
Yeah.
Hopefully, before you even set sail, you got familiar with all the ship's safety equipment.
Ooh, see, now you're talking my language. I'm usually the one scouting out the snacks, not the safety gear.
Right.
But really, what kind of equipment are we talking about here?
Well, things like life rafts, flares, EPIRBs, and those emergency beacons, and first aid kits, those are essential in a chaotic situation. Knowing where that stuff is and how to use it, it's literally life or death. For instance, did you know that EPIRBs can transmit your location, even if you're miles offshore, to search and rescue teams?
No way. I did not know that. Okay, I am definitely paying more attention to safety equipment on my next boat trip. Okay, so say things are getting worse and it's looking like the ship's actually going to sink. When do you make that call? The terrifying decision to abandon ship.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough call. And you should always do it carefully. And ideally, you're following the crew's instructions,
Right.
Abandoning ship. It should always be the last resort. But if it comes down to it, you got to know how to do it safely.
Okay, so let's say it's time to go. I'm picturing a total chaotic scene, everyone rushing for the lifeboats. Is it every man for himself at that point?
Actually, even if it's chaotic, there's a right way to abandon ship. The key is to jump feet first, holding onto your life jacket and away from the side of the ship. That way you don't get pulled under when it goes down.
Whoa. Those are details I never even, thought about. It's crazy what you don't realize until you really, break down a situation like this.
Totally. And it might seem counterintuitive, but, yeah, it's not always the best to abandon ship right away. If it's still, afloat and pretty stable, it might actually be safer to stay with it.
Wait, really? Wouldn't that make you more likely to go down with the ship?
It's a calculated risk. Think about it. A bigger object's easier to spot, right? And the ship itself can actually protect you from, the weather. So you just got to keep assessing the situation. Be ready to abandon ship if it gets too dangerous. But sometimes staying put, at least at first, is the best move.
Okay, so it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Got to think on your feet and adapt to what's happening. But let's say you do end up in the water. What then? I mean, I imagine it's pretty scary out there, alone in the ocean.
Yeah. It's a pretty daunting scenario, and that's why understanding what to do next is so important.
Okay, so let's unpack that after a quick break. All right, we're back, and my imagination is swimming in a sea of what-ifs right now. So we've abandoned ship, we're in the water, life jacket's on, and, well, now what?
Okay, so first things first. Even in the open ocean, you're not necessarily alone, right?
Right.
If there are other survivors, try to stick together, strength in numbers.
Totally. But let's say, just for this deep dive, that I'm by myself. What should I focus on first?
Staying warm. Got to fight out that hypothermia. We've talked about how fast your body loses heat in water. And in a shipwreck,
Yeah.
That's a serious danger.
Okay, you've officially convinced me to take hypothermia seriously. We talked about the H-E-L-P position before, but anything else I can do to stay warm out there?
Sure. If you have, like, a waterproof bag or container, try to get as much of your body inside as possible.
Yeah.
Might not be pretty, but it'll trap some warmer air around you.
Like a DIY sauna in the middle of the ocean?
Uh-huh.
Resourcefulness is key. What about clothes? Should I, like, strip down or bundle up?
Good question. Really depends. If your clothes are all wet and heavy, they could be weighing you down, actually making you lose heat faster. But if you can wring them out, or they block the wind once you're out of the water, might be better to keep them on. Really depends on the situation.
Okay, so I'm trying to stay warm, but I'm also probably getting thirsty. We know drinking seawater is a no-go, but how do I find drinkable water in the middle of the ocean? Seems kind of ironic, huh?
Right. Surrounded by water but dying of thirst.
But yeah, finding drinkable water, top priority. Rainwater is your best bet. A life raft might have a way to collect it, but if not, try using any waterproof material to catch some rain. Even a little bit can make a big difference.
Feeling like MacGyver over here. Speaking of being resourceful, is there anything to eat in the ocean? Like, am I going to become some expert spearfisher woman?
Haha, I like your optimism, but unless you're like a marine biologist, I'd avoid eating anything from the ocean.
You could accidentally eat something poisonous or something with parasites. Not a risk you want to take in a survival situation.
All right, no sushi for me then. What about swimming? Should I try to swim towards, like, the horizon and hope for the best?
You know, it's natural to want to take action, but swimming long distances in open water, super tiring, could actually hurt your chances, unless you see land pretty close by. Stay put, save your energy, focused on signaling for help.
Okay, got it. So I'm floating, trying to stay warm, not drinking seawater, and definitely not eating random seaweed. But what about the mental side of things? How do you stay positive, you know? Motivated when things are so, well, dire? The mental part's got to be just as tough as the physical stuff.
You're absolutely right. Mental toughness, just as important as physical. And when you're dealing with isolation and fear and all the uncertainty, yeah, easy to feel overwhelmed.
I can imagine. I think I'd be spiraling pretty quickly. Any advice for, like, keeping your head above water mentally, so to speak?
Of course. One of the most important things, focus on what you can control. You can't control the weather or when rescue's coming, but your attitude, your thoughts, your actions, those you can control.
Okay, focus on what you can control. Got it. What else?
Have a routine. Even if it's just, organizing your supplies, checking for leaks in the raft, some light exercise, it gives you purpose, keeps your mind busy. Like you're creating normalcy in all the chaos.
Right. Schedule for my own little survival island. Love it. Anything else?
And it might sound weird, but talk to yourself, sing, recite anything you remember, keeps your mind active, stops you from falling into despair, like keeping your brain engaged and pushing those bad thoughts away.
Oh, I'd be singing sea shanties all day long. Haha. But really, I get it. Staying mentally active is key.
It is. And lastly, never give up hope. Remember, people have survived some crazy situations at sea. The human spirit is tough. And sometimes that will to survive is the difference between life and death.
It's like that line from Shawshank Redemption. Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies.
Exactly. Perfect example. All right, let's shift gears a bit. Talk about something that can really increase your chances of rescue. Signaling.
Yes, we touched on it before, but I'm ready to go full-on signal flare crazy. What are the best ways to, get someone's attention out there?
So if you're in a life raft, it might have a bright canopy or flag. Make sure those are up and visible. You can also use shiny things or like pieces of debris to make reflective signals, like a mirror to catch the sunlight.
I'm already picturing myself building a giant SOS out of seashells.
I love it. And of course, if you have a radio, use it. Send distress calls. But even without one, don't underestimate the power of a whistle. It carries way farther over water than shouting, and it takes less energy.
2 blasts for help. I'm learning so much.
That's what we're here for. And remember, even if you think you're alone, never stop signaling. Someone might be looking for you. A passing ship, a search plane. Staying visible, making noise, it can really increase your chances of being found.
Okay, so we've got staying warm, finding water, the mental stuff, and signaling. What else do I need to know about, like, surviving in a life raft? It can't all be flags and whistles, right?
Right. There's more to it. Once you're on a life raft, you got to deal with the realities of life raft living.
Okay.
Not exactly a luxury cruise.
Yeah, picturing something less Titanic and more Castaway here. What do I need to know to make life in a raft, well, bearable?
First thing, you got to understand how the raft works. It might have a manual pump for inflating, a bailing bucket to remove water, maybe a sea anchor for stability. Got to learn to use those tools.
Like being the captain of my own tiny vessel. What else?
Maintaining the raft is super important. Check for leaks all the time. Repair them ASAP with the repair kit. Keep it as dry as you can. Keep it organized so stuff doesn't get lost or break.
Right, it's all about, like, order and control in a totally crazy situation. What about hygiene? Staying clean in a life raft can't be easy.
It's not.
Yeah.
But even basic hygiene can make a big difference for your body and your mind. If you have fresh water, use a little for washing your hands, your face. If not, try seawater, then dry off really well. Try to, go to the bathroom away from the raft. Keep it clean.
Right, sanitation is super important in close quarters. Speaking of which, what about the other people in the raft? I imagine things could get tense, stuck together in a small space for who knows how long.
Oh, absolutely. Dealing with the other people, that can be one of the hardest parts.
So how do you keep things from turning into, like, Lord of the Flies?
Communication. That's key. Figure out who does what, Make decisions together. Remember that everyone's stressed. Be patient, be understanding, and try to support each other.
It's like you're building a little society right there in the raft.
Exactly. And, even with all the hardships, there's stories of people who made strong connections, even friendships, while they were surviving in life rafts together. It shows how resilient humans are, how we connect, even when things are rough.
Wow, that's amazing. It just shows that even in the worst situations, there's always hope and connection.
Absolutely. In the end, that hope and connection, they can be what gets you through.
Well, we've covered so much today, from what to do right away to the mental and emotional side of things to actually living in a life raft. Before we wrap things up, I want to hear your final thoughts on what really makes the difference, between surviving a shipwreck and, well, not.
That's the question, isn't it? And honestly, there isn't always one single thing. But I think the most important things for survival, they're knowledge, preparation, and mental strength.
Okay, let's break that down. What do you mean by knowledge?
Knowing what to do in an emergency, it's crucial. That's why we tell everyone, learn about sea safety, take a first aid course, familiarize yourself with how to survive.
So it's not just about hoping everything will be okay. It's about knowing what to do when things go wrong.
Exactly. And then there's preparation.
Right. Having the right gear, that can make all the difference.
It can. Having a good emergency kit, knowing how to use it, practicing those skills beforehand, that can really up your chances of survival.
Like they say, chance favors the prepared mind, right?
Totally. And last but not least, mental toughness.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that inner strength, that will to live. That's what can make all the difference.
You got it. Being able to stay calm under pressure, make good decisions when everything's crazy, never giving up hope even when it's tough. That's what it's all about.
The human spirit is pretty incredible, especially when we're pushed to our limits. We've talked about so much. Any last bits of wisdom before we head into the final part of our deep dive?
Just want to repeat that knowledge is power. Take the time to learn this stuff. Share it with people. And remember, even when it feels like you're drowning, you've got the strength to stay afloat.
That's a great message. Okay, we're going to take a quick break to gather our thoughts and get ready for the final leg of our shipwreck survival journey. Stick around. All right, we're back. And wow, my brain is definitely doing the survival float after all that. We've covered so much. Staying calm, the life jacket, signaling, even like the mental side of survival. But I kind of want to zoom out now, see how all this connects to, the bigger picture.
Yeah, good idea. It's important to think about how these survival things apply to life outside the life raft, so to speak.
Right. Because, let's be honest, you're probably listening to this on dry land, so how can we actually use this shipwreck stuff in our everyday lives?
Well, that's the tricky part and also the cool part. Thinking about these extreme situations, it makes us face, how vulnerable we are. And it makes us think about being more resilient, resourceful, prepared, no matter what happens.
Okay, I like where this is going. Tell me more.
Let's start with knowledge. We talked about how knowing survival stuff can really help in a shipwreck, right?
Right.
But that's true for so many things in life.
Totally. Like knowing how to change a tire, cook a simple meal, even just handling a tough conversation. That's all practical knowledge that makes you more, self-sufficient. Resilient, even, in everyday life.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, whether it's a natural disaster, a personal crisis, or just, dealing with the world every day.
And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. You don't need to become some survival expert overnight. Just start small. Learn one new skill, read something helpful, take one little step toward being more prepared.
I love that. Small steps, big changes.
Speaking of preparation, we talked about emergency kits on a life raft. How does that work for, like, normal life?
Same idea, just different scale. Having a basic emergency kit at home or in your car could be a lifesaver. If the power goes out, there's a natural disaster, even a flat tire.
Okay, so what should be in my landlocked emergency kit?
Well, water, some food that won't spoil, first aid kit, flashlight, radio, extra batteries, a whistle. Good place to start. And there's tons of info online about making a kit specific to your needs and where you live.
It's like a survival kit for the real world.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the mental game, that inner strength we talked about. So important on a life raft, but just as important in everyday life.
Totally. Life throws us curveballs, right? Jobs, relationships, unexpected problems. That's when your mental resilience is really tested.
Absolutely. We can't always control what happens, but we can control how we react. It's about being mindful, having healthy ways to cope, having good people around you.
It's not about being happy all the time. It's about being able to, handle those tough times, big or small.
Well said. And, sometimes those tough challenges, they're also the best chances to grow. We often find out how strong and resilient we are when things are hard.
That's a really good point. So we've gone from shipwrecks to everyday life. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Just think about what we've talked about today. What parts of your life could you be more prepared for? What could you learn more about? How could you be more resilient? It doesn't take a shipwreck to realize those things are important. They're how we navigate life through all the storms.
That's a perfect way to end it. Knowledge, preparation, resilience. Those are the things that help us face any challenge. We hope you found this deep dive into shipwreck survival, informative, interesting, and maybe even a little inspiring. Remember, even when the waves feel huge, you have the strength to stay afloat. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.